Hello and welcome to our fourth episode of Author's Feet, a literary program focusing on contemporary writers. I'm your host, Empress Ciku Mwaniki. Our guest today is Eunniah Mbabazi, an engineer turned author with 3 titles to her name: If My Bones Could Speak, The Unbirthed Souls, Breaking Down. Eunniah is also an editor, with her name regularly appearing in the recent works. Eunniah, karibu sana. Welcome to our program.
Thank you.
I'm so happy to have you on the bench. Yes. So Eunniah, first things first, what are you reading right now?
I am reading The Afterlives by Abdul Razak Guna.
Is that a Kenyan?
No, he's Tanzanian.
Is it Tanzanian?
Yeah.
Is that the guy who won?
Yes, the Nobel for last year.
All right,
Yeah.
all right.
I am very structured when it comes to my reading. I only read African books, but also I run this book club that we only read African books. So even The Afterlives is what we were reading in November. We're meeting this Sunday, so I'm trying to finish. But even outside the book club, because for the book club we only read 1 book per month, but then outside the book club, every other thing I read is purely African.
Where do we rank as Kenyans?
I think we're doing good. It's only that I feel like in Kenya, I know a lot of us and you guys who are writing. So I'm trying to discover other writers from other countries like Eritrea, Namibia, Mozambique.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, when you discover them, please throw them my way. Let's go straight to the point. Eunniah, I just finished, I've been reading your books. Amazing, amazing writing. Let me just say that. But you made me really sad. You made me so sad. What's this? They're sad books. What's that about? It's are you trying to empty your soul, or what's that?
I really don't know how to respond to that, because when people meet me after reading my books, they usually expect to see this sad person. And then they find out that I laugh a lot, I make a lot of jokes. I am a totally different person on Facebook compared to my books or my blog. So I feel like writing sad stories is only my writing voice. I found my voice in the sad stories. And also because sadness is an emotion that everyone has experienced sadness. Like, it's very hard to find someone who has never been sad in their lives. Absolutely. But also it's easy to find someone who has never been happy in their lives. So I feel like if I write about sad stories or sad things, when people sit down with my books or with my blogs or anything, it's like something they can relate to. Yeah.
But you made me sad. Yet I couldn't stop because the writing was so beautiful, and I kept thinking, okay, this is the last story I'm going to read. And then I read and it's really sad, and then I finish and I'm like, okay, maybe I need to experience the other one. But good job. I think you've got, you've done it in a way that sort of makes the reader, at least it made me, like relate, like you're saying, you know, we've all been sad at some point. Yes. But it's making the reader think a little harder, a little deeper about sadness, something we don't like doing. Is that deliberate? Is that something you're trying to do? Like, you know, poke people into, you know, like, face this. You can't hide your head in the sand.
Yes, yes. It's very deliberate, because also I myself, when I am sad, I like to distract myself rather than focusing on what's making me sad or angry. So I feel like when I write, I am trying to tell myself first that you need to focus on this thing first. This sadness will not go away if you don't discover where it's coming from and how I can make it work with it or live with it. So my first audience for my writing is usually myself. So if I tackle myself, then it's easier then to address other people.
So you write this and then you feel like it's like healing?
Yes.
It's like healing. Yeah. That's why you're able to always, you know, be making jokes everywhere. And it's beautiful. Awesome. There's, I would like to know, there's one particular story here. I guess we'll talk about it a little bit later. But these stories, are they based on like personal experiences, or is it people you know, or how did you zero in on these stories?
For all the books or a particular book?
Let's talk about the Unbirthed Souls.
For the Unbirthed Souls, majorly it was for me, especially because I have lost a lot of people. So I wanted to address grief and death as a whole package. So yeah, the stories are about me or people close to me who died, or just the pieces of me that I feel like died during my life on earth. Yeah.
Have they resurrected those pieces? Do you think they have? Or have you made peace with them dead?
The thing with me is, I carry grudges, so I am still learning how to let go.
Okay.
But now it's a process, because once I write about them, I feel like a whole weight has been lifted off my shoulders.
Okay.
Yeah, so we are in that journey.
Okay. Besides writing, first engineer, engineer Eunniah. What's that about? I mean, engineering and creative writing are so different. What came first? Were you gonna be an engineer and then you're like, oh wait, I can write? Or were you gonna be a writer and then you thought, my grades are so good they could do engineering? How did that work?
I never thought I could write, but I was reading from a very young age. I think from class 3, I was reading things like Ciku Mwaniki, Ken Walibora's work. So I knew I liked to read, but I didn't think I could write. I didn't look at authors like real people. I didn't think that these are real people behind these books. So when I got to high school, I think that is where your career starts to shape. I was very bright, of course. And then I wanted to become a doctor. I wanted to do medicine.
Right.
So I get to Form 4, and then after exams, I passed, but I didn't qualify for medicine. So, but of course, I liked English, I liked books. So I told my dad, because I can't do medicine again, may I please do English literature? And then he looked at me and said, no, you've passed really high. I got an A-. I just missed 1 point to get an A. So he said, you can't do that. So next point is engineering. You know the way our parents are. If you're not a doctor, an engineer, or a lawyer, or worst, a teacher, you don't have any career.
Underground is creative.
Yeah. So that's how I got into engineering. Engineering was not hard for me because I liked maths and the whole thing was very simple. But again, I didn't write for all the 6 years I was in campus, just a few, maybe like 5 poems in between. But then I think writing and reading and the whole aspect of art and being creative was within me. So I don't think I was living fully during my campus days. I was not living. I was just breathing, not living.
How was that feeling of after 6 years of writing out something?
It was hard at first because I was lucky enough. Immediately I graduated. Actually, the day I graduated, I got my first offer for a job.
Wow.
Yeah.
Engineering.
Yes, engineering. A very good job. So I started that job, but I was still feeling like this is not it. I can do it, yes, but I need to do something else in addition to this. So actually, that is how Breaking Down was born.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was going to work and saying, okay, Sawa, I will do this, but let me do this also. So that is how Breaking Down was born within my first 6 months in employment.
Dear Daddy, has he made peace with the baby girl living engineering?
Right now, I tell people yes, because initially after I quit my job, he kept on sending me links to, oh, Kengen is hiring, Kenya Power is hiring. But nowadays, like I think 2 months ago, he sent me a link for, I know this guy, he works at Oxford Publishing House, so you can talk to him. So I think he has accepted that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your books read like long poems. I'd like to know whether that's deliberate or it's because you told me you've been a poet for a very long time, yeah? So is it something like you're used to it, or did you know that's what you were doing?
Because I'm a poet, even the thoughts in my head, they sound or read like poetry. So when I translate them on paper, that's how they come out.
That's how they come out. So it wasn't like deliberate. It's like a style, eh?
Yeah, it's a style.
But I must tell you, it's awesome poetry because I struggle with reading poems. And like I said earlier, I read and I kept reading and I kept reading. And so it's poetry, different, but beautiful poetry. Facebook is where you're most active, right? When did you break the Facebook country, as I call it?
2019.
2019. Yeah. Can you trace back what happened? Can you remember?
the book was coming out, and before the book came out, I had this beautiful deal with a publisher. So everything was right. I didn't need to do any marketing, nothing. But then Nairobi did that thing, and then
Character development.
Yes. And that deal went. So I realized I need to do this thing myself, and the only platform I have is Facebook. So I started writing, not the real stuff in my books, but these catchy things that people can relate to. So I started in 2019, April. That's when my editor told me, you need now to tell people that a book is coming out, and you don't just go to Facebook and say, look here, my book is coming out. He asked me, who are you? And I couldn't say it. So I needed to build my profile on Facebook. So that's how I started out.
How did you build that? I know you've got they're usually very short, and I like the relationship between you and Dad. I don't know whether it's real or you're just being a creative out here, but has that always worked for you, the daughter daddy thing?
Surprisingly, yes.
Yeah?
Yeah. Every time I put up a post about my dad, I usually get orders.
Yeah.
These other posts I can put up and never get any order.
Are you
but
sure?
Yes.
That's so true.
But specifically about my dad, I think people just love the idea of him being that, the way he answers my statements. Yeah. So, yeah, I get a lot of orders from my father.
5 years down the road from here, what would you like to do with all these talents?
That's a hard question. I would like to say that I want to get into awards, but I don't think that is what I was cut for.
Awards like, what do you mean?
The way people submit your books or stories to submissions, you know, the submissions, and then they rank. I don't think I was cut for that. So I don't think I'm going to do any, I don't think you're going to see my name in, or Eunniah has won this award. I don't think that is going to happen. But I'm very passionate about holding other people's hands and just telling them that this journey is very hard. Writing itself is hard, but now after you write, that is where the hardest part begins. So I'd like to hold other people's hand after now they write. So 5 years down from now, the way my head looks like, I would want to have a space where these writers who are lost in quotes would come and find everything under one roof. Like
a consultancy? Yes, I need to find a... Are you already sort of doing that?
Yes, I'm already doing that with specific writers who have edited their books. So I'm already doing that with them. So we are just trying to find a way of making this process seamless. And also right now, I'm the only person doing it. And I can't do that for even 10 people. I'll be overwhelmed. It's hard.
It's hard. Editing. How did we learn into editing?
So I was lucky enough, the books my dad used to bring home, they were very quality books. I started off with Ciku Mwaniki and Kina Mwisho wa Kosa. Those are well-written books, well-edited books. So I'd like to say that I know how a good book looks like. So now when I got into the Kenyan sphere of publishing and writing, I started reading Kenyan books, and I would underline mistakes or highlight. And then if I know you, I would always tell you, oh, Shiko, I read your book, but I think here you can do this and this and this. At first, it started like just grammar. Like maybe you missed a punctuation mark or you misspelled a word, things like that. But then with time, I realized that I have read good books. I know how a good story sounds. So this one is not it. So, but now the critique part, I was only doing for my friends. So if I know you, I'll say, oh, Shiko, hey, here, hot air. And then people would ask me, what do you mean by I've written nothing? So what could I do better next time? As a hobby anyway, I was not getting paid. But my friend called Vera Omocha, she noticed that, and then now she started giving me raw manuscripts. Please work on this and make sure you track changes so that I see what you've done. Yeah, so when I started out editing I cleared campus in 2017. So Vera guided me from April until I think August of 2017. Yeah, just telling me this is what you do. If you feel like there is a plot hole, this is how you identify plot holes. This is how you can fill plot holes. This is how you build characters.
What would you tell people about using editors? And do you think editors can be cheap?
Yeah, I feel like people first need to realize that editing is more than me just telling you put a full stop here, an apostrophe here. That is also editing, but that is not the finality of editing. People need to realize that editing is more of us getting the storyline okay, us building our characters in the right way, us using the right number of characters in a story or in a book, us not taking readers for a goose chase in our books because we want the book to get to 300 pages, so we're just writing nothing. And I don't think you should publish a book if you can't afford an editor. I know I will get a lot of stones because of this.
There's a big debate going on about that right now.
But the first thing you tell people when they ask you about self-publishing, the first thing I always tell people, it's very expensive. So if you don't have money, just don't do it. Look for either a publisher or, I don't know if villagers can contribute for you to publish a book, but I'd say your first cost should go for an editor. Different editors charge differently depending on their expertise, their experience, and also just their name. But you can always find a cheaper editor. It does not mean that a cheaper editor will not do the work. It's only that maybe they're starting out, they're trying to build their portfolio, so they need people to trust them with their work. So I'm just saying, look for someone who you can work with. I think writing is a lot more sacrifice than even what we reap. So if you want to do it, you need to go all in and say, I need to put out my book. Even if I won't sell, at least my first work or my third work is perfect. Yeah.
Unbirthed Souls. Story one, I think the one made me saddest, especially because I saw your dedication to your best friend. Have you dealt with that? Because I just felt like I lost her and I felt really, I mourned.
She passed on in 2020. I don't think I have moved on yet because this was my first person to lose, the closest person I have lost. I have lost my grandparents, all of them apart from one, but I was not close to them. But for my friend, we have been friends since 17 years ago.
So that thing is true.
Yes.
Now it's even sadder for me now thinking that this really happened. Would you read a passage from that story? Would you read it for us?
I do not know if or when this grief will start to fade, even in the slimmest of ways. I do not know when the severity of this heartache will begin to reduce, or when these tears will make any sense to you, or when your life henceforth will stop feeling like a burden, or when the voice of people laughing with their beloveds will stop, even just for a moment, hurting your ears. I do not know when you will stop hurling the what-ifs to your mind. I do not even know whether you will ever know how to live with this much hurt. But if this grief, this heartache, this breaking of bonds without physical bleeding, this clenching and unclenching of fists, this mincing of your flesh that other people cannot see, if any of this is similar to mine, I know that someday, somehow, you will learn ways of carrying it without its heaviness hurting you. No, time doesn't make it easier, not when time itself keeps bringing up old memories or what could have been new memories, not when you keep seeing their faces in the people you meet and the places you visit, not when every new day is a reminder of your grief and the permanence of death. But with time, you learn new ways of grieving softly, teaching your heart how to beat calmly and trudging through life seemingly seamlessly.
How absolutely deep is that? Are you making money out of your books?
Yeah.
You are?
Luckily, I am. I wouldn't be doing it this far if I wasn't making money. I'd say I like calling it luck because I know people who write even way better than I do and they're not making anything.
Not way better.
Yeah,
differently.
Yes,
yeah.
differently. So I usually say I am lucky that since I did my first book, I have never sat down at the end of a day and said, this is not worth it. Every day I find new readers who are willing to spend their money, a lot of money on my books and my writing. The day we launched this book, this newest book, the following day someone had completed the book, and since that day, every day, they keep on texting me, when did you say your next book is coming out? I have run out of books to read. Yeah,
it feels good. That's the pressure you have to live with.
Yes.
Okay, that's awesome. And have you? I'm sure you've had bumps here and there. What have you struggled with?
The one thing I struggle most with is people always wanting to know which point exactly in the book is you. When you are asking, because of course not all stories are about me, because there's a story where maybe the main character is a man, or another where the main character is a divorced woman. So it can't be me throughout. So even if we put the disclaimer here that this is a work of fiction, people will always want to know. And I understand them because they feel like you're very personal. You know, the way I said when I was growing up, I didn't think these authors are real people. But now in this time and age of self-publishing, now people know authors are real people.
You're happy you went self-publishing?
Yes. I'd say yes and no. 75% yes, 25% no. The 25% no is because I feel like I write beautifully and not many people have read me so far. And the line that is blocking me from accessing these people is also because of the market itself. I'm only accessing people through word of mouth and social media, and people who are 40 years and above, they won't find me on social media, or 50. Or people who are 17, 16, they won't find my writing. But maybe with a traditional publisher, I don't know. I have not done it before. But I feel like also even if it's not getting markets, it reduces my work. There's a time I was on break.
Your money.
Of course, and my money. There's a time I took a social media break for 2 weeks. I wanted it to last a month, but it only lasted for 2 weeks because at the end of the day, my career depends on social media. So I can't, because that social media break was for my mental health. So it reaches a point when you say, I can't kill my career because I am on a break.
Perhaps last word?
I think my first point would be to say, do not refer to yourself as an upcoming writer. Put your mind to it, put your money to it, put everything to it. It's very risky, but you can't do it 50-50. Talk to people, go to bookish events. I think one thing that has helped me is, since I moved from Mombasa to Nairobi, I attend all, if not most, literary events. I go to events, I talk to people, because during these events is when you meet your readers or your prospective buyers. You talk to people. Do not assume you're a celebrity. You're not. So invest in people relations. It comes in a long way, because even my biggest gigs I've gotten, they were referrals from people.
I am so happy to speak to you. Thank you for being so gracious, so gorgeous, and so talented. And I hope to have you back at some point with many more projects. I want to hold books like this because I know we can. And sawa. Thank you so much, Eunniah. It was amazing talking to you. And we've come to the end of our program today. Until next time, it's bye-bye from me.